Welcome everybody to the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit, where we are giving you the tools to create a life that you love on your own terms through holistic health practices, confidence, and joy. And with me today, I have the pleasure of announcing KristaKing. Krista is a registered dietitian, nutritionist, integrative and functional certified nutrition practitioner, and a holistic health expert. She uses evidence-based nutrition practices, intuitive eating philosophies, and spiritual and emotional tools to give you the resources to naturally heal your hormones, digestion, and anxiety. And I'm so excited to dive deeper into what all that is, because Krista does so much, and I'm so excited to talk to you today. Thank you, Krista, for being a part of the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about how you became so passionate about holistic health and kind of where that brought you to today.
Yeah, definitely. So, like you mentioned, at the core of my practice, I'm helping clients with any hormonal issues, gut issues, anxiety, and mood things that are coming up around food. And what really led me to what I'm doing now with clients was my own experience with my health, but then also losing my mom at a young age in college. And so at that time, the holistic health world was not what it is today, where there's so many tools and resources available and just knowledge about it. And she really started digging into what was available at the time. This was over 10 years ago now, and that really sparked my interest. You know, I just started college. I switched my major into dietetics or nutrition, which was really the only path I knew available at the time. And so I became a registered dietitian, which is really nutrition through the kind of more conventional medical model as we think of it. And that was a great foundation, but I always, wanted to know more. I wanted to understand, how can we prevent these health conditions that we are experiencing? So really through this prevention lens and holistic practices that I was just interested in through my own journey, and that my mom also introduced me to. So really all of that has just culminated into all of these different tools that I use with clients that I have, used in my own health to really help uncover the root cause of why we are experiencing these symptoms we're experiencing, and how we can find sustained healing.
That's awesome. And I know you were just talking about how the main passion and spark came from your own personal experience with health. What exactly were you experiencing with your physical health that kind of opened up the door to wanting to know more than just your basic what's in your nutrition book?
Yeah, well, I think when we go through difficult life experiences, we don't really realize the effect it has on our nervous system and our stress response. And so a lot of this I'm uncovering, now years later, of the effect of having, my mother's failing health through my teenage years, and the effect of that and how scary that was. And then how I chose to cope with it after, in college, going to a large university where we're kind of, see all around us. We work hard, we play harder, and alcohol kind of became my tool of choice to manage all of these emotions that we're not really taught to deal with. And so it really took, I was just talking about this with a client today. It took the pain of, staying the same was greater than the pain of change, when I was like, okay, this way I'm managing everything that I've been through isn't really working for me anymore. And so that's when I started untangling my relationship with alcohol, no longer use that as the way that I am dealing with things. Sobered now for almost 4 years, and really digging into, okay, I had experienced so much disconnection from my own body. I wasn't even realizing I was experiencing symptoms like painful periods or gut issues, because they weren't so bad that I needed to go, nothing in me triggered like I need to go see a doctor for this. But we're kind of living with these like low grade symptoms, or for some people more extreme symptoms, that are either written off, are told are normal, or we're just so disconnected from our bodies we don't even realize they're an issue, and that we can feel better.
Right. That is huge. That is huge. What you just said about just a lot of people think that they have to just put up with, and they get to just
Mhm.
live with whatever it is that they have, not necessarily knowing, maybe just because it's not in their consciousness, that there are alternative means to get your health better.
Mhm.
So first of all, congratulations on the 4 years of being sober. I think that that's fantastic.
Thank you.
And what have you transitioned to? And what do you kind of coach your clients into,
Mhm.
outside of, if we're no longer using alcohol as a
Mhm.
means for stress management, what
Mhm.
do you use as an alternative means now?
Yeah, so it's really, when it comes to any of these things that we may deem unhealthy coping mechanisms, that thing isn't in itself the issue. It can become its own issue, if we're, drinking too much, that can ignite other issues. But underneath it, there is something driving us to the behavior or the substance. And so it's really about uncovering what that is for you. And that's really where the emotional connection piece comes in. And so it's a lot of self discovery. I mean, it's work to kind of, take that step to want to understand, why am I reaching for these things that aren't really, um, you know, serving me in a way that is what I want it to be doing. And I see that play out, potentially with substances, but also with food. It's really, common for us to reach for food for comfort or control or restriction. And that's where disordered eating can come in, and eating disorders. And so that's where I can see it play out, in some of the clients that I work with. But underneath it all, no matter what thing we are reaching for, there is something driving us to that. And so we all kind of have our kind of unique mix of things that plug into us that work in the moment. For me, alcohol at the time, I guess. And so it worked until it didn't. Um, and so it's really understanding what is underneath that. And so for me, if you peel back all the layers, it's, going through these difficult life experiences, and we just didn't have the tools. It's not on our parents or our elders, because they didn't really have the tools either. And so just kind of collectively, we were just never taught to deal with difficult emotions. And I think that is really at the root of a lot of these things that we reach for, that can over time become, unhealthy in a way.
That's huge. Yeah. And it kind of just ties back into, my personal belief that everything is 100% connected. It's just like one big web, one big circle, where your physical health, your emotional, your spiritual, your mental health, all of it is combined. And how you do one thing can show you how you're going to do another thing, or how it's going to show up for you.
Hmm.
So thank you for bringing that in here. Um,
Yeah.
so I know a major part of how you go about your life, and how you go about coaching your clients into their best versions of their life, is through healing naturally through food.
Hmm.
So I wanted to invite you to talk a little bit about what that means to you, and how, I know you kind of touched about, starting at the emotional level and kind of figuring
Hmm.
out why you do things from that perspective. But go ahead and speak a little bit more about what it means to heal naturally through nutrition.
Yeah, yeah. So, as a dietitian, I like to say nutrition is my main tool. So that's kind of, the lens that people are coming to me through. So nutrition and lifestyle, those are kind of my tools that I'm, working with. And so I specifically am helping clients with hormonal health or conditions and gut health, and then also anxiety, whether that is more generalized anxiety or anxiety around food and body image and things like that. And so what I say is that nutrition, food is the foundation, it's the building blocks of our body. And if we have a symptom, that really means that we could we could be lacking in a certain nutrient, or we could be experiencing some inflammation, or have, some other things going on. But a lot of these symptoms that are kind of more seem kind of disjointed, like sleep issues, skin issues, menstrual cycle issues, all of these things that, don't really seem connected when you list them out. They really do have a connection, and we can tie that back to our hormonal system and our nervous system too, a lot of times, because stress is at the root cause of so many of the conditions, or pretty much every condition that we're seeing today. And what stress can do is it just has this cascading effect in the body. And so oftentimes we think of stress as, oh, I'm so stressed out. But really, stress is a physiological or body response to stressors. And we can all have our unique mix of what those stressors are. But sometimes we're not totally, checked in with, what is stressing us out. We're kind of just in this like panic, go, go, go mode without taking a minute to kind of slow down and see, okay, what are all the things that are causing me to kind of be like this? And so nutrition is a tool that we can use to help with balancing our physical body. And blood sugar balance is really the foundation that I talk about with clients, and really what that means. I always say, just remember two things. One, am I eating consistently and not skipping meals? And am I building my meals with carbohydrates, protein, and fat? We do need all three of those. Each one of those have had their time being demonized, but we do need them all, maybe in varying amounts depending on your body, but we do need them. And so when we focus on blood sugar balance and getting the right nutrients that we need, that helps with balancing our nervous system and our stress response, because our stress response is tied in with our blood sugar. So if we think about what happens in the body when this whole stress cascade goes on, so something, like a stressful work email comes in, then the body reacts. And we can't really control that, but we can control how we respond. And nutrition is one of those tools that, we will respond differently if we've had a good breakfast, we're staying hydrated, versus we've skipped breakfast, we're on our like sixth cup of coffee. Like, we know what we're gonna what those two situations will feel like. So it's not always that nutrition is going to solve everything, but it puts us in a better position to be able to handle the things that are coming our way.
Right. And like you were saying, nutrition is it may not solve everything, but it is a powerful tool. And
Right.
I truly believe that the more tools that you have to navigate your health, the better. So that way, you can look at your tool belt and be like, okay, maybe this is actually a nutrition issue. Maybe this actually is a stress issue, which, like you said, ties back to nutrition. So
Mm-hmm.
just knowing when to pull out what tool for what circumstance. So that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how exactly in your own personal business, since you own your own and you have for a while now, how has implementing this kind of integrative nutrition and spiritual and emotional practices, how has that positively impacted? Well, we know how it's positively impacted your health, but how has it positively impacted your own personal business?
Yeah, using this root cause approach typically is that missing piece that clients have been looking for. And so it's really common for me to hear when I'm talking to either a potential new client or new client that either I've tried all the things, or I am so confused, or I've been to multiple practitioners. There's this missing link, and often it's a combination of we know what the problem may be. Like, if we can name a symptom or a condition, that's really the medical view of how we are, looking at our health. We're really good at labeling and naming, and that can give us a really good starting point. But we need to know why. We need to know why these things are out of balance, and everybody's root causes may be different, for the same condition. And so if we're treating the condition and not the root causes, we're not going to be seeing the sustained change. So it's really taking away this cookie cutter approach for naming and labeling a condition or symptom, and individualizing, uncovering the root causes. And the root causes will be often a combination of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual reasons.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely took me quite a while in my own career to kind of pick that up, that everybody is completely different. And there's no
Mhm.
one cookie cutter approach to anything, to fitness,
Mhm.
to nutrition, to finding the root causes for things. And I love that's one of the things that inspires me the most about the way that you go about your coaching is that you find each individual why for each
Mhm.
individual person. And I think that that is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. So I also wanted to ask, because I know that you specialize in hormone balancing. What exactly does that mean, and
Mhm.
where do you start with something like that? I feel like it's a massive
Mhm.
undertaking.
Yeah. So with hormones, really, if we can define what is a hormone, it's basically a chemical messenger in the body. So it's basically one of our internal communication systems. So it's our hormones and our nervous system, so our neurotransmitters, so our mood chemicals too. And so when we're talking about balance, it's really how all of the hormones are in relation to each other. And so we really want to have an understanding if we're experiencing symptoms, that are, stress related, are we feeling kind of like wired and tired, experiencing sleep issues, low immune function, getting sick all the time, or menstrual cycle issues, irregular cycles, painful periods, things like that, really checking in with our symptoms. We really want to do some testing and understand what our specific hormone levels are and how they are related to each other. So if we just have one hormone value, like we only get our estrogen measured, we need to understand how it is in relation to the other hormones. Otherwise, it's not really going to be it'll give us some information, but we want to understand how they're all connected and then understand how they are related to the symptoms that we are experiencing. So it's really that root cause approach, can involve some testing sometimes, or really kind of should, because otherwise we're just guessing based on symptoms. There's a little saying like test, don't guess. We want to really know, okay, what's going on in my body? And so hormones, we have our stress hormones, we have our sex hormones, we have our thyroid hormones, we have our hunger hormones. So we have hormones that do a bunch of different things. And so it's just really understanding what are our symptoms and kind of what is driving those symptoms.
That makes a lot of sense. And like you were saying, just having that, it doesn't really matter what the measure of one hormone is, if in relation to the other ones, it's off. So that's huge. I think that that was the key takeaway that I got from what you just said.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's new. I just learned something new, guys. So so where exactly do you feel like, because I'm making up that the state of the nation right now, kind of internationally, we're dealing with a lot of stress, anxiety, uncertainty. Um, I know we kind of already discussed the emotional underlying issues for that,
Mhm.
but where do you feel like that may come from in terms of nutritional deficiencies or
Mhm.
anything along those lines?
Yeah, so it is really important to know that nutritional deficiencies or, just not getting what we need through food or sometimes targeted supplements can be a root cause of certain, mood issues that we're experiencing. I have worked with clients who have been dealing with anxiety, depression, who are therapists themselves. They're like, I have all the mental, emotional tools, that something is still missing. And then we do some testing and, chat about their health history and all of that. And it can be tied back to they're just not getting a particular nutrient or enough of a nutrient. And so there are certain ones that are helpful for supporting, our stress response and our anxiety or depression. And if we're not getting it, basically, our body is just a sum of all of these different chemical reactions going on. That's really what metabolism is. We think of that only like associated with like our weight or weight loss, weight gain, but really metabolism, if we just, you know, make it, a little more boring than what the diet industry wants us to think of it as, it's just the sum of all the chemical reactions going on in the body. And so we need nutrients, whether that is, broken down products from our carbohydrates, our fats, and our proteins. Those are our macronutrients or our big nutrients, and our micronutrients, our vitamins and minerals. And so all of these reactions require certain pieces. So if we're missing one, then certain things aren't going to be happening. And so, we may not have, enough of something to make our feel good mood chemicals. And so then we're feeling anxious or depressed. And so again, it's a combination of our mental, emotional tools that we're incorporating, but sometimes it can also be linked back to a nutritional deficiency.
Absolutely. So, I know you just said that the three macronutrients, the protein, the carbohydrates, the fats, they're all important in having a balanced diet. And you've already said that you don't subscribe to the diet culture or anything like that. So, what would you say to those people who, let's say, are subscribing to, let's say, like a low carbohydrate diet, a keto diet, even paleo or vegan, that are kind of stamping labels on their food and following the diet that way? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Well, I always say it comes back to intention. Like, what is your intention behind following the diet? And if it's something that's working for you and you're not, it's not kind of becoming something more in your head, then that's okay. But if it's something where the intention is, becoming something that is, taking up more mental space than it needs to be, or, I think it really comes down to what is your intention behind following it.
That makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. So for somebody who may currently be dealing with any of the symptoms that we've talked about, whether that's, extreme stress, and now we've discovered that it's not a state of being stressed out, it's reacting to a stressor in your life. So either experiencing stress or anxiety or skin issues, what would you say is the first step for somebody who acknowledges that they're not where they want to be, but the first step to move forward?
Yeah. So there's a little framework I like to think of when we're thinking about changing habits or behaviors or making any sort of change in our life. And the first step is always uncover before we can heal and then sustain that healing. So first, it's taking a step back and figuring out, just kind of doing a bit of an inventory of what are my symptoms? What am I experiencing? What are, my stressors? What things are, coming at me at all angles that I feel overwhelmed by? So just doing a bit of an inventory and then getting clear on, what do I want to feel like? What do I want to experience? Sometimes we can get so caught up in how bad or not good or kind of just really connected with our symptoms or our conditions that we, even though we say we want to feel better, we can get really kind of caught up in it. And so also doing a bit of, thinking about, what do I want to feel like? What do I want to be experiencing? And then, getting back to basics is really what I talk about so much with my clients. I already talked about the blood sugar balance, and I feel like a broken record about it sometimes, but that is really kind of a more simple first step. Am I eating consistently, and am I building my meals in a way where I'm getting a variety of those foods? And so that's nutrition, step one. And then when it comes to stress, it's figuring out from that little inventory of my stressors, which ones can I control? Which ones can I not control? Of the ones that I can control, which ones can I just remove from that list or delegate or get rid of? And for the ones that we can't control, because a lot of times we can't control the things that are stressors, and we've seen that obviously this past year, it's really checking in with, how am I responding to the stressors? And that's where you've mentioned the tool belt. I call it the toolkit. What is in our toolkit? And are the things in my toolkit actually helping me? Or is it kind of like this, high interest loan where for me, when I was using alcohol, it's like, okay, this is working in the moment, but the whole next week it's not. And so what are the things that I am using to manage my stress? So am I getting some movement in? Can I do some journaling? Do I have a morning routine where I'm not just jumping right into work first thing? Do I have a set lunchtime? As an entrepreneur, we have control over our schedules, and that's part of why we become entrepreneurs. We want that freedom, but then, we can end up, doing everything for our business, doing everything for our clients, but we need to incorporate things that we're doing for ourselves as well. And I think I'm speaking to myself as I'm saying this because it's hard. It's like we all kind of need to do that inventory ongoing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you call it a toolkit.
Mhm.
That's great. So we kind of already discussed that. Well, you gave us a couple of things that were also in the toolkit in addition to nutrition.
Mhm.
So outside of nutrition, what is
Mhm.
your number one favorite tool to use?
Yeah. So I always encourage my clients to have a handful of like really quick in the moment, like takes a second, and then some longer ones. So I'll share one of each. So one is movement for me. I like to do yoga, any type of yoga. And I also really like to do yin yoga, which is a slower, more holding of postures for about 2 minutes. So that's one that can really be nice at the end of the day to serve as a disconnection from work to the evening. And then for an in the second or kind of in the moment, I have 2 seconds before a meeting sort of thing. Um, I have an essential oil roller. So our brains are really, our memories can get tied or connected to scent. So we can kind of create a new habit or, associate a feeling with a scent. So just getting any scent, it doesn't matter what it is, but then you can start associating that with calm. So when you smell that scent, that's kind of a signal to your body to kind of calm down.
That's awesome. What's your favorite essential oil mix that you use to?
Yeah, so I have them right on my desk. So I have this Sage Wellness one, and it's a brainstorm blend. So it has a bunch of different things in it. But yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Those are such good tools. And
Mhm.
I mean, I again, I find you so inspiring just based off of, like you said, with your story. A lot of people don't get off of that hamster wheel. They find it difficult to get off of the hamster wheel once you kind of start um, a bad habit. So
Mhm.
outside of, if there's any way to
Mhm.
prevent hitting rock bottom before
Mhm.
having to get off of a cycle like that, is
Mhm.
there anything that you can leave our audience with that would help them if they're watching
Yeah.
now and they feel like you, they're on
Yeah.
this hamster wheel, they don't know how to get off? What would you
Yeah.
leave
Well,
with today?
yeah. Well, we don't have to hit a rock bottom. A rock bottom is really the point where we want to make a change. And so just identifying that even if it's not bad in the way that we're told it needs to get bad, whatever habit that is. And there can even be, things that are seemingly neutral behaviors or positive behaviors. As entrepreneurs, overworking can be a thing that can become something to check in with. So we can kind of tap into and know when that time for change is, when something just doesn't kind of feel right, or when we want something to be different but we're having a difficult time making the change. But we don't have to hit a complete rock bottom. A rock bottom is just the point where you decide you want to make a change.
That's huge. That's huge. And I love kind of what you were saying about just constantly taking this self audit
Hmm.
and inventory, especially like you were saying, as entrepreneurs, we're our own boss, we're our own employee. There's nobody necessarily telling you when to check in, check out. So I love the tools that you were sharing about the end of the day.
Hmm.
The yin yoga, the disconnection between
Hmm.
work and then getting into sleep mode. Um,
Hmm.
is there a morning routine that you kind of go to help you take care of yourself before taking care of your business?
Yeah, and it's funny you ask that because that's really this year's thing that I'm working on myself, because it can be so easy to grab the phone and click the email or the Instagram or whatever. And so really for me, trying to keep the phone away and not get sucked into other people's worlds before I'm taking care of myself. And so, always I like to always have a breakfast and big thing of water, and try to have coffee either with or after breakfast, because the caffeine, and the effect on our stress hormones. So if we are including it, having it with or after breakfast can be helpful. And Yeah, just my goal for myself is incorporating some sort of either morning movement or morning meditation or just a bit of quiet time before jumping into the work day.
That's awesome. That's very powerful. And I know the morning routine has actually been something that I've incorporated this past year as well. And it's been a game changer, um,
Yeah.
of just having that separation between, okay, this is my self-care hour. This is when I'm taking care
Hmm.
of myself. This is when my time block is to take care of my business. And then it's time for me again at the end of the day. So
Right.
thank you for
Exactly.
sharing these tools. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Is there anything else that you kind of felt like we didn't talk about today that you want to just leave the audience with? Any type of tips or
Hmm.
anything at all?
Yeah, I think when it comes to nutrition, we talked a little bit about the diet culture that we can live in, or the health and wellness world that can seem like there's so much confusing and conflicting information out there. But really, part of our healing journey too is establishing a healthy relationship with food and our body. And so, kind of everything that we've talked about, because food can become that source of control or comfort sometimes, just knowing that that can over time become its own source of stress. So food can be a powerful tool, but it's just all about getting back to basics and being gentle with ourselves with where we are on our journey right now.
That's amazing. I think that there's nothing else that you could have said that would have been more perfect than that. So thank you. I'm a huge proponent of, being gentle and providing yourself grace when you're navigating something as complicated as, your health. It's
Yeah,
can be complicating at times. So
absolutely.
I wanted to thank you for coming on and sharing all of your expertise and your story with us today. And I know that you have a gift for the
Mhm.
audience, so I'll invite you to go ahead and let us know what that is.
Yeah, so I have a free guide. It's 9 steps to happy hormones, and it also includes a 5-day sample meal plan.
That's awesome. What is something that you can that the audience can expect within this 9-day hormone plan?
Yeah, so the 9 steps really lay out those foundational pieces that we are talking about. So things to consider, to check in with, like we've been talking about with stress and just understanding some of these foundational pieces. And then the 5-day meal plan just maps out example meals and ways that you can incorporate those proteins, fats, and carbohydrates at meals in a way that is, satisfying and doesn't feel restrictive, and yeah, just support your body.
Awesome. That's perfect. I definitely suggest anybody that's watching to go ahead and download that hormone guide and get going on it. It's great if you can, listen and participate with all the things that we're talking about, but really taking action is how we're going to go ahead and work on our health on a holistic level. So thank you for providing that free gift. And thank you again, Krista, for joining us and sharing all of your expertise. I really do appreciate it. So for those of you watching, we will see you on the next episode.